All right, fellow team players out there, Joe and I are back for another hour of fantasy talk. And, our clocks have changed back in most of the United States, but the NFL, the offenses are on kicking up the gears. And one of those players we're going to talk about to start off the show. So please sit tight and enjoy the program.
Welcome to Local Football Flavor, where we talk to local fans to get the real information of what's going on with their team. Yeah, I love starting off this show. Welcome all team players. Well, let's go right to it. I mean, there's one guy who took the fantasy world by fire.
Big dog.
I kind of mentioned him on Friday, or on Saturday, rather, because we did it on Saturday. Mixon, man.
The fun thing about it is we mentioned him, and the problem with Joe Mixon is that wasn't supposed to happen.
Mixon's never supposed to happen.
He hadn't scored more than 3 touchdowns in the season, and the reason I think I didn't end up going with him this week is that I looked at his stats the last 2 games, and I believe he had like 27 yards one game and like 56 yards in one of the other games.
Yeah, he's been in a rut.
And you can totally look up his stats just to verify these numbers. But he hasn't been playing in the way that, we've expected Joe Mixon to play. Now, for all intents and purposes, we only expect Joe Mixon to maybe get like 80 yards and a touch every game, maybe 110 yards. But man, 5 touchdowns was absolutely ludicrous. I hadn't seen something like that since the Kamara game.
The Christmas game.
Christmas.
Yeah.
And, I feel like Sean Alexander has probably done something like this in the past, and I'm sure like LT has done something in his past. I know a lot of people were throwing out.
Well, he was one of 5 players ever to do 5 in a regular season.
Yeah, and I think it's absurd because like Kamara's numbers were pretty similar in that game where he had like 4 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown or something like that. But Joe Mixon isn't the type of guy that's going to get you 5 touchdowns. And so for that to happen, whoever had him pretty much was winning their week. If you had him in DFS and you paired him with Devontae Adams, both of those guys,
they won everything. Yeah.
I
need to point something out, and this is not just because I'm a Steelers fan. This is because I actually like coaches filming the tape. There is a moment in that game. Cincinnati is, I believe, on the 3-yard line for second down.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, Mixon has already scored 3 of his touchdowns.
Yeah, all in the first half, I believe.
They do a quarterback draw with Burrow and get him absolutely lit up. And a lot of obvious questions. A lot of them involve unchurchables as you're saying them. And just, first off, he's your franchise. Mm-hmm. Why are you having him get hit on a really poorly blocked shotgun quarterback draw? No one else in the backfield, basically 8 people in the box against you. He should have thrown it. But point being, Carolina, who knew nothing about how to stop Mixon, knew they were going to run it. And they just set him up to fail. Very next play, by the way, Mixon scored number 4. So it wasn't like they knew how to stop Mixon. They just knew they were going to run on him. And this brings me to a fear question I have, Bob, for you. Mm-hmm. Is Carolina going to ruin my chaos theory of Houston getting the first 2 picks in the draft by Cleveland earning the first or second?
Here's what I've seen so far this year, in the stats, as both a stat watcher and actually watching tape, and I'm watching games, is that Carolina is incredibly physical on defense.
On defense, yeah.
And they can really get beat down, and they can really, and similarly, I feel like how I said on the DFS show, I said Carolina might be a good play here this week, and we ended up going with Carolina on one of our teams. That was not the right play.
No,
but they're what they had shown throughout the season was showing us that potentially could be good. Like they could be at least average at best. And if you're looking for a DFS defense, you just want them to not get lit up. You want them to be able to maybe get a turnover and score some points, right?
Yeah.
And with the physical style that they played, it seemed like, they've actually played good running backs this year. And
well, they play our division.
Not one of the, well, didn't they play the Giants as well?
Yes.
And
yeah, they beat the Giants.
Saquon Barkley didn't go off for 5
touchdowns. They lost to the Giants in week 2.
But Saquon Barkley didn't go off for 5 touchdowns.
No. So part of the reason is Boyd actually, the passing game wasn't as bad as 5 touchdowns implies. Like when I think of 5 touchdowns in a box score, I think of old school Nebraska football. Like we threw for 40 yards and just everyone's running. And that kind of happened, but not really. Because as I said, that coach is an idiot and he was putting Burrow out there in harm's way for really no reason. And I didn't like it. I from just a pure coaching standpoint, I don't like it. I prefer just basically playing like Tennessee, handing the ball off every single time. And if something's not working, keep handing the ball off. And I guess we got to segue to that one too, don't we?
I mean, before we get into Tennessee and that debacle that's happened there, let's just say about Joe Mixon is this game was his career ceiling. It's never going to happen again. And I fully
that would be LaDainian Thomas's career ceiling too, though. Like that's not like a slate on him.
Well, no, I fully expect that maybe another 2 touchdown performance could be in for this year, but most likely he's probably going to be held under 80 yards, maybe a little bit higher until Jamar Chase comes back. We don't know the health of Jamar Chase, but people are really in the sell high on Joe Mixon, and I'm there with them too because he has an incredibly hard slate of games coming down towards the end of the season. And when you want to win, a lot of people are going to know that too. And what we talked about on a different episode is that we all watch the same things. We all take in the same media. And so you've got
But there's a key caveat here. This is like the last chance of exploiting people. Because I noticed in every league I was in, it started basically over the last 10 days. All the trade bait trades are starting to go through, and this is the time of the year to do it. Welcome to week 10.
You especially, in a redraft league, your decision is to say, okay, can I get somebody better than Joe Mixon? And usually speaking, the people at the top are probably at the top for a reason, and that reason is probably not Joe Mixon. So they already have the talent. So you want to reach the top. So if you're middle and around, Joe, you're 4-5. I'm 5-4. My running backs did not play well this week at all.
Aaron Jones debacle.
Aaron Jones, Kamara didn't play well at all. My linebacker ended up getting hurt. Pete Warner ended up getting hurt in the middle of the game. So I really didn't have – I had a fighting chance to win this week. But when it comes to the mid-tier teams, like if you're 7-2 or, 9-0 or 8-1.
Yeah, if you're 7 wins or more, you're running away with it.
You're probably, and you own Joe Mixon and he's your second back, you could probably sell him high to somebody who might be struggling down towards that bottom tier and say like, hey, you float me Mark Andrews and this running back and I will give you Joe Mixon. You're probably, or like Kenneth Walker or something like that, talented players that are going to keep producing as the year goes on. Now,
Kenneth Walker's the real deal.
Oh, absolutely. Is that going to happen? Probably not. But I know a lot of owners that are really spiteful, right? And so, like I know that they won't do trades based off of principle. And some people, they are like, okay, Joe Mixon is this, or Mark Andrews is hurt, but I'm going to sell you to him based on his perceived value in a couple of weeks. And you ain't going to get any trades done like that. So if you do want to trade for Joe Mixon right now, everybody's cautioning you not to. But I feel like if I feel like people are selling, and they're going to want to sell him for the price of the 53 points that he got.
Mm-hmm.
But most likely, they're going to end up probably selling him at the 12 points that he's realistically most likely to get on a week-to-week
Well, let's
basis.
talk someone who is realistically, which is Aaron Jones. Would you do an Aaron Jones for Mixon? Because both of them are, put up 12. Obviously, both of them have.
Absolutely not. Joe Mixon is currently, I feel, on the better team.
It's true.
With better weapons that they don't have to focus solely on the run to, mitigate what's going to happen. Like Aaron Rodgers, like I've been saying all year, Aaron Rodgers is off this year. He's been not good at all.
Mm-hmm. And I broke down in the strategies football Bills versus Packers why. It's Rodgers' fault.
He's been salvaging fantasy relevance by late in games getting an extra touchdown thrown.
He's not even good at garbage time. That was the part that annoyed the hell out of me. He's not.
No, he's not. But I'm saying is he's salvaging. He's not good at it, but he's salvaging, going from 7 points to 15 points or going from 8 points to 12 points. Like, he's not startable. But when I think about the Packers have caused so much devastation for fantasy lineups this year. Mm-hmm. It's not even funny. Like, A.J. Dillon was drafted between the 3rd and 5th rounds. He has essentially performed as a 12th rounder. He hasn't done anything. Aaron Jones has been drafted as a 1st or 2nd rounder. Mm-hmm. And he has only had maybe 2 weeks where he's actually put up points that are relevant.
I'm feeling that stab right through my heart, Bob.
Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Randall Cobb. I heard they signed Jordy Nelson again for some reason.
Because Rodgers doesn't like anyone.
Then whoever else they have on the roster, I don't think, other than Cobb and Doubs, I don't think another Packers wide receiver, and I'm definitely wrong about this, but I feel that another Packers wide receiver hasn't caught a touchdown from him.
No, I just did it. It was some no-name Durs or something like that. Like it was so
my
far
point
down the
exactly.
Line. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Is that Rodgers is hurting that team, and again, watching strategies of football for actually drawn out. But there are so many times that they're doing RPOs, and instead of handing the ball off to let the offensive line get in rhythm, he's throwing it for a 3-yard gain. My personal favorite one is one where he pulls it out just to get sacked. Like he got lit up by a nose tackle.
Here's the devastating thing, and we're going to go back to a couple weeks
ago. It's like the 3rd bookmark for those watching.
Rodgers is hurting every single player on that team, including himself.
Especially himself.
And Aaron Jones is suffering so hard because you saw the highest scoring game that he had, he didn't even rush over 50 yards. And so the issue with Jones is that he's either throwing up 6 or 46 or 6 or 36. I would not accept an offer of Aaron Jones. Like if I was looking at Joe Mixon and I wanted Joe Mixon and I offered somebody Aaron Jones, I know that I'd probably have to offer them 1 or 2 more players to even get Aaron Jones off my roster. Now, earlier in the season, I said, you got to keep Jones because he has the name recognition. He has the ability to put up a high number, a good game. And we saw that 2 weeks ago when he actually put up the good game. It was only 28 points in a PPR league. But that's the problem, is that he's not going to – the owner who owns Joe Mixon is probably not going to want him. And unless the other person in the trade is incredibly valuable, like Mark Andrews could be later on down in the season. More than likely, if I was an owner of Joe Mixon and I did want to trade him for some reason or another, guys I would try to target would be Ken Walker, right?
Sure.
I try to go after, see if I could package something for Saquon Barkley. In my mind, if I'm trading Joe Mixon right now, I'm trying to package him and somebody else for CMC, for Saquon Barkley. And I got to give up a lot, and most people aren't going to want to do that. I don't really want to go. You're probably going to get a lateral trade if you go Ken Walker for Joe Mixon. You're probably not going to get anything else in that trade. As much as you want, because people know the value of Ken Walker and they know the relative value of Joe Mixon, and they know that he's not capable of putting up 53 points again. So the mirage of selling him for high is exactly that. It's a mirage. It's not going to happen. It never happens. Guys I would target, though, which would be really interesting because you could probably get a bunch if you were struggling, and say you were, 3-6 or something like that, and you have Joe Mixon. This is the perfect opportunity, if you have Joe Mixon, to maybe go out and make a run on a bunch of smaller guys that potentially have a good schedule ahead of them. Now, I know you don't like the Chiefs running backs, but the Chiefs running backs have a great fantasy playoff schedule. Now,
they do.
If you happen to get there, you could probably
I have been packing Pacheco on my bench for that reason in a couple of different leagues.
Exactly.
And, since you're switching to the Chiefs here, because I think we need to move Pax Mixon here, because if not, Mixon can take up this whole show. One of the things you mentioned was you hate the all or nothing players. But I think that we're watching a player on the Chiefs evolve beyond an all or nothing player, like the guy whose job he truly took did the year he broke out. And I think that we are seeing Hartman truly taking the Tyreek Hill role. And I think that we're about to begin seeing that it's not going to just be a random big game than nothing. This guy looks like he's becoming a little bit more than the number 3 option, and it's becoming a little bit more consistent. We're always also seeing this in a slight downtick of Kelsey. But I believe that Hartman, he's probably available and are valuable cheap in a lot of places. Absolutely. But as we look at the playoff push and how Kansas City doesn't have a whole lot of world beaters during that period, he's certainly someone that I would want to target to hold on to, because, there is a very real chance that in the second half of this season, he does become the new Tyreek, because it's not like Andy Reid forgot what the playbook was like. And it's not like Mahomes can't throw that ball anymore. They just needed someone to prove they can trust. And I believe Hartman is doing it.
So to that point, here's what we need to know about the Kansas City Chiefs. If anybody watched that game, which a lot of people did on Monday night, you would have seen Patrick Mahomes coming out, final drives of the game, scoring a touchdown, going into overtime, getting the points in overtime, racking up. I think he was like 42 for 62 for 400 yards, and I think like 2 touchdowns or something like that. Now, that stat line on its own is an incredible stat line. Most quarterbacks cannot and will never hit 400 yards, cannot or will not ever throw 62 passes in a game.
Should not. No quarterback should throw more than 50.
And could not or would not do the things that he did on those final drives of the game. Now, all of that said, if Malik Willis even was competent enough,
if he was Teddy Two Gloves
to manage an offense, Derrick Henry would have kept rolling throughout that game. Now, granted, the Chiefs did make adjustments, and they did very well because they were
let 1 first down in the second half.
They knew Malik Willis couldn't throw the ball, so I'm stacking the box. I'm putting all my big guys in, which they did, and they said, beat us, Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry couldn't do it because there was absolutely no threat of the pass. And I don't care how good Derrick Henry is, and I don't care how like a great specimen of like talent and physique he is, he cannot beat 7 to 8 to 9 guys.
No one can.
In the box, play after play after play, because Malik Willis couldn't do it. I believe that Kansas City is going to show out in the next couple of weeks because they got embarrassed in that first half by Tennessee. Tennessee
played their game in the first half.
Tennessee continued to play their game in the second half. The only problem was by the second half, and this is something that Patrick Mahomes does really good, and I give him credit for taking advantage of this on the football field, is that he tends to be better as that game gets going, because the talent on defense gets tired. And he's taking advantage of tired defenses. Now, 400 yards is not pedestrian, so he was moving the ball.
This year, it's insane. There's a lot of quarterbacks not getting to 250 anymore.
Here's the thing. Tennessee had the best, and I think I texted this to you, the best bend but don't break defense for the majority of that game. And if you have the talent and the personnel to do that, plus an offense, this revealed to me that the Chiefs are beatable.
Oh, they are, yeah.
And when I look at the Chiefs,
they lost to the Colts.
And I see this, and that's two AFC South teams that we constantly dog the AFC South. There is some
rightfully so.
There are some talented players playing defense in the AFC South, and we don't think about that because the offenses are just putrid. They're absolutely terrible. Some of the worst offenses in the league, bar none, hands down. You can't look at another conference and tell me.
Oh, it's the worst four collectively. There's no debate.
If you tell me the best offense in the AFC South is the Jaguars, I would want to smack you across the face, because
but you'd also
you're
be
right. You're right. But that feels so wrong to say.
Yeah.
And that's nothing to say against Trevor Lawrence, because he's had some good games. He's had some bad games. We're going to see
Lawrence is the jury is out, but it's going to start coming in with some negative votes here pretty soon.
Yeah, ETN is explosive. There's no doubt about that. But when we go back to the Chiefs and Mecole Hardman, what they did in that game is PPR. Juju was probably a monster. Mecole Hardman was probably a monster. Kelsey was probably a monster, because they were getting passes, but they weren't getting in the end zone. And that's great for a fantasy player. But as I look at the season ahead of us, is Mecole Hardman sustainable? Absolutely. Is he startable as a third wide receiver or flex? Absolutely, I'd be happy to start him.
He's there where he should be started now.
Would I be happy to start Juju? Yeah, sure. Would I be happy to start Kelsey? Absolutely.
Obviously.
But if I'm a fantasy, if I have those players on my team, the one I would try, like, I know this is going to go against all faculties and everything that, anybody ever thinks of that. But if you have Travis Kelce, that's a good piece if you're struggling in other positions, because with the resurgence of Mecole Hardman, Patrick Mahomes is now aware of another weapon on the field. And if Kelce is covered, he might not have to force the ball to Kelce. And you saw when Kelce was out of the game that their backup tight ends are actually pretty decent. And they did catch the ball. So, like, when I say that, I say, is there anything wrong with the Chiefs offense? No. Is there anything wrong with the Chiefs defense? It could be better.
It's always could be better. It's the most overrated defensive coordinator in football.
But when it comes to the offensive skill position players, and we say that the Chiefs running backs have the easiest schedule, but are they going to get the ball? Because
that's the problem with Kansas City. They don't ever get forced to stop running. They choose to stop running. And that is the giant difference between the Bills and the Chiefs, and why the Bills are a better team And I'm ready for this debate, even though they lost to the Jets, which we do need to talk about.
But here's the funny thing, though, is that Chiefs truthers around the world will not bring up that they lost to the Colts. And the Colts are hot garbage on offense. And they have
Jets play the Colts 100 times right now. How many of the times did the Jets beat the Colts?
Oh, the Jets beat the Colts 100 times, probably 85.
Yeah, I was thinking 70, but that's about the right. It's the Colts are a disaster. And the Jets,
they were a disaster.
The Jets are the AFC secretly good team. And it's weird. Everyone feels weird saying that sentence, but it's true. At the end of the day, the AFC North is a bad division and the Jets are good. That doesn't make sense.
Top to bottom, again, the AFC East is probably the best division in football.
Top to bottom, they're definitely the best defenses in football. There's no doubt about that. Those are 4 legit defenses in the AFC East.
I think you put any of those AFC East teams against any other team any given Sunday.
You put any of them in the South, they win it. All 4 of those AFC East teams would win the South.
Oh, absolutely. I think that they'd be rolling through the South right now. If you put them in the NFC South, they'd be rolling through the NFC South too. And that's the crazy thing is that I'm not a Buffalo Bills fan. I could care less about the Buffalo Bills. You like Josh Allen. You're not a Buffalo Bills fan, but you appreciate when players do really good.
It's the best quarterback in football right now. And
this isn't to say that Patrick Mahomes isn't great, isn't a generational talent, but there are so many things about Patrick Mahomes that when you look at the way he plays as the game goes on, yes, he can make spin moves. Yes, he can run. Yes, he can do this. Yes, he can do this. Yes, he can do this. But I've seen a player just like him do the same things and not be successful. And his name is Vince Young.
Mm-hmm.
And
Vince Young was never as accurate as Mahomes.
I get it. Vince Young is not accurate, but I'm not making the comparison based on accuracy. I'm basing it off of athletic talent. And Vince Young will throw those sidearms. He could bowl you over. He could run for 100 yards. We saw Justin Fields run for 178 yards, the most a quarterback, I believe, has ever run for in the history of the NFL.
That game was stupid too.
Vince Young, when he was around, people didn't want him to run. People said, "Don't run, throw the ball."
Yeah, that was during the RG3s. It got broke, so therefore every quarterback will get broke.
They said, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." He could have done it, and he could have been pretty good. I'm not saying he was going to be on any level that Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen.
He would have been equal to a Kaepernick type stuff.
But I'll say that I've seen players do that before, and throwing the ball sidearm as I'm coming through the line of scrimmage. Okay, yeah, that's a mindset. And when we talked with Tom about the Giants, right? We talked about quarterbacks that have a good mindset. Patrick Mahomes has a good mindset. There's nothing wrong with his quarterbacking brain. But the things that he's doing on the field and then waiting to do, I mean, he's good. He's great. But is he the second coming of... I don't know. I don't think so. He's won a Super Bowl. He's amazing. I just don't see from that game yesterday or any game that he's played this season. And feel free for anybody out there to show us tape that says that he's any better than 5 or 6 other quarterbacks in the league. He has a great coach. He has a great mind. He has great talent. When you have great talent, great mind, great coach, of course you're going to win games. When you have people to throw to, of course you're going to win games. Kyler Murray
is not in the same league as him.
He's a bonehead. He's got decent talent. Terrible coach. Of course he's not going to be as good. Lamar Jackson, really good talent. He has a
with
terrible
his legs,
team.
Not with his arm.
Yeah, he has a terrible team and a pretty good coach. Tua has weapons on the field.
He doesn't have the talent, though.
He's making better decisions.
He can only make decisions. He's got a very good mind. He just doesn't have an arm or leg work.
And he has bad coach.
Horrible coach.
And
he's an arrogant coach.
And then we look at the GOATs from history. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, right? You see that those two players are falling off. And so, of course, we want to champion and we want to be like, huzzah, here's the next best quarterback. And they're right. He is the best in a lot of things. Josh Allen
is better.
He's the best in a lot of things too. You like Josh Allen over him. I like Josh Allen's arm strength more than Patrick Mahomes. I think that Josh Allen can move the ball down the field faster than Patrick Mahomes.
Well, there's a big difference between the way they're
a detriment to the team.
So Mahomes basically plays, and this is what got him in trouble last year for those that remember it. Mahomes basically plays that every single time I'm doing something, I want it to be the best and the most.
And that annoys me.
That some people are just on the bus or not. In general, Buffalo is just get the sticks moving. And they don't send Diggs deep every single play. They send Diggs past the sticks. And Buffalo is one of the best teams at, if it's 1st and 10, we don't get a 9-yard pass. We get an 11-yard pass. You see a lot of teams that fail in the NFL. The Steelers,
that's the
Bears,
between Mahomes and
they get 9-yard passes, and then they have 2nd and 1, and they end up punting the ball somehow. Buffalo, another first down. And that's really how you win in the NFL. It's are you consistently getting the sticks moved? And I know that I just compared the elite teams to the incompetent teams, but in the NFL, that's the difference. It's 2 yards. Did St. Brown on that out route step out a yard short of the sticks, or did he step out past it? Well, that's the difference between having a 1-win team and a 500 team. I mean, really, that's what it is. And Deontay Johnson is yet to cross the sticks on 1st down.
You know, I don't
want to pay $20 million, but he can't do it.
I don't want to talk about the Steelers right now because they're absolutely terrible. But back to Josh Allen is, you made a video a couple of days ago referencing like that Josh Allen is the only one that could do this. Well, there are
only one in the league right now who can do it. He first off, he got out of a pocket where half the league period gets sacked.
That eliminates at least.
So now we're down to the obvious running quarterbacks, the Murrays, Mahomes, Jackson of the world.
Absolutely.
Of them, there was an out where they could have stepped out of bounds past the 1st down line. All of them would have taken it. Allen is the only one who keeps going, drops his shoulder just to get an extra 10 yards. He's the only one who acts like that and does that. The rest of them all take the 1st down and tap out. Kyler Murray actually takes a knee before the 1st down because that's what Murray does. But the rest of them all would have stepped out after the 1st down. Hurts would have done it. Obviously, Lamar does it. Mahomes would have done it. And then there's another play that people got upset about, which even more people got upset about, is rolling out to his right. Allen is being draped by a guy. And everyone's like, oh, Mahomes would have made that pass. No. When Mahomes is draped by someone, he always does one of 2 things, unless it's the final 2 minutes and he's losing. He throws the ball out of bounds the vast majority of time. He just doesn't get sacked on the outside.
Because that's the smart play.
It's a very smart play. But he also knows he will go down, and if he's a littler guy and he can break, like let's not do that.
Josh Allen is more physical because
Josh Allen's like Cam Newton. You're like, you ain't breaking me down.
It's because he can be more physical.
So when someone said Ben used to do that, yes, Big Ben did do that. Big Ben can't do that now. The question is now. Josh Allen's the only person in the world who can do plays like that now. Josh Allen,
I would caution against saying only person in the world.
He is. Because first you have to have the opportunity. There's only 32 that have the opportunity. And he's the only one who can.
Counting college players as well. Like, I mean, let's not say only person in the NFL, right? And I will say, though, for those people that are Mahomes truthers and really like Patrick Mahomes, we're not saying there's anything wrong.
I'm not saying I want to take Mahomes with me any day or build a team around him. I'm just saying Allen's better.
Right now, if I was building a fantasy football team right now, like in a 14-team league, I took Herbie over Mahomes because I believed in Justin Herbert and his connection with Eckler, and I believed in a fall off from Hill to Juju. Like, I'm not saying that there's anything bad about Patrick Mahomes. It's that,
and for the record, guys, Mahomes is my fantasy quarterback.
Yeah,
like
I think
I took him.
I think the expectations for Mahomes are so high that when we see a game like we saw against Tennessee, it makes me at least come back down to earth and say, okay, he faces a good team. He's going to be in trouble. The Chiefs are going to be in trouble.
Well, they lost to the Bills. I mean, that's the other part. Let's never forget when the two of them played each other, the Bills won in Kansas City. Kind of important.
And when we think about it, those two teams, great talent, great coaching, great or good defense, great defense for the Bills, decent defense for the Chiefs. It has a lot of problems, but Nick Bolton is a beast. I mean, there's no way around that. L'Jarius Sneed is great. But they didn't have to do anything. I mean, they really logistically had nothing to do in that game other than stand there because they knew Malik Willis wasn't moving the ball. Like that whole
it really reminded me of the way Philadelphia treated Cooper Rush, because they were like, throw it to us. We've already picked you off 4 times. Come on, baby. Give it to me again.
Yeah, there was, I mean, if I was a Kansas City player, I would have said to Andy Reid, I was saying like, yo, bro, like, put me out there. Cool. They ain't going to pass it more than 10 yards. They're not even going to pass it 5 yards because, believe it or not, most people know it, the combined talent of Robert Woods, Westbrook Ikine, and
Burks,
when he was healthy, have a total of like 591 yards. Which is half of Tyreek Hill's yards. Which is
like AJ Brown got that in 2 games or 3 games.
I mean,
rather.
it's bad. Like the comparisons that I see, it's bad. But I mean, moving on from Patrick,
they're still going to win that division though with that receiving core.
I mean, moving on, going forward, Patrick Mahomes is going to be in the playoffs. Josh Allen with his elbow. Hopefully he's gonna come back and be healthy and doesn't have a Matt Stafford type thing.
Let's not worry.
They're gonna be in the playoffs. Tennessee is probably gonna be in the playoffs unless they do something amazing down in Indy, or they do something amazing in Jacksonville because
Indy's out.
The Bengals or the Ravens are going to make the playoffs. You have a slight.
I got Baltimore in it. I would go Baltimore for the AFC North all day.
And then you look at the AFC East, then you look at the rest of the AFC East, and you say to yourself, geez, Patriots can make it. Jets can make it. Miami can make it. Because y'all know the Raiders ain't making it. Y'all know Denver's going to do something stupid and not make it.
They already have.
And you all know San Diego, or not San Diego, but LA, is Allen going to come, or is
they love imploding?
Allen going to come back healthy? Is Mike Williams going to come back healthy? I don't know. I mean,
they're already dating Sean Payton. Like,
yeah, you know, I feel like that's not going to be good unless one of those two guys come back healthy. And I think that's what has hurt Herbert this year, is that it's not that Herbie Herbert's
physically hurt. He got hurt in week 2 and really hasn't healed.
Herbie's physically hurt. The whole team is banged up. The conditioning there is terrible. They look like the New York Giants.
Yeah, Allen hasn't played basically the whole season. Keenan Allen's a big deal.
I look at the AFC, and year after year, at least for the foreseeable future, I am seeing Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. It feels like what Clemson and Alabama were a couple of years ago, that we would see Clemson and Alabama.
Yeah, this is the new Brady Rodgers. This is the new Brady Peyton.
Yeah,
This is what it is. It's just,
it's hard to say it isn't. And
this is, we know the game's going to be outside in the playoffs, and it's going to be snowy, regardless which one it's at.
And going to another AFC team, the Baltimore Ravens, here is that game Monday, or the Patrick Mahomes game was Sunday night. Sorry for saying
Monday night was.
But Monday night was Ravens.
New Orleans was disgusting.
And I gotta say, Lamar Jackson, like they gave the ball to Kenyon Drake, right? He was moving the ball. They moved the ball so well in that game, despite some players coming back for New Orleans. But then a bunch of New Orleans guys ended up getting hurt. And our guest the other day, we were talking about how the conditioning in New Orleans is garbage, that everybody gets hurt, and it all tends to be at the same time. Like, they cannot be healthy at the same time. Like, Pete Werner, great talent, rolls up his ankle. Marcus Davenport, good talent. He gets hurt. He has to leave the game. Andy Dalton looked like dog doo-doo that whole game.
Why was Taysom not in?
They didn't give Taysom Hill the ball.
That's my biggest problem with that game. Taysom Hill should have become the focal point.
I don't understand that team at all. And
here's what I don't understand. If Jameis Winston isn't able to play, why isn't he on the IR? Like, because he clearly is better quarterback than Dalton. If his back is so fractured, why is he not on the IR? Why are you wasting the roster spot on him? You could have done it at the beginning and had him come back 2 weeks from now without any issues. I got to tell you, there's about 3 coaches in the NFL that look like they're over the head. Denver, New Orleans are both clearly bitten off more than they can chew.
Is that other than that, like we were saying, that game against Arizona where he throws the 2 pick sixes, other than those 2 pick sixes, Andy Dalton had been playing pretty decent. And decent enough that offense was humming. And they were moving the ball. But for some reason, man, Roquan Smith changed that Baltimore defense. They could not, like Justin Houston kept attacking Andy Dalton. And the corners were suffocating Olave and the wide receivers that were out there. And Roquan Smith was just freaking phenomenal. Like, the fact that the Bears traded him and now the Bears actually have an offense that can do something. Can you imagine what the Bears would have done?
Miami's just bad. But
no, I'm saying that's 2 weeks in a row that the Bears actually put up points against Dallas and against Miami. We knew Miami was bad. I told everybody on the DFS show before you talked me into Justin Herbert that Justin Fields was the quarterback to have this week.
Yeah, you're right.
Fantasy.
No, we went with Fields, dude. We went with Fields. We just didn't have Mixon, so it didn't matter. We went with Fields. Off.
And so I look at this and I say to myself, like, I'm looking at the NFC now and I say, oh geez, New Orleans is still not as good as we thought, not as good as we want to be.
Atlanta's leading that division for like a month now.
Atlanta's been leading that division. Seattle, right? We said at the beginning of the show that we wanted to talk about Seattle. Seattle
is good. Like, they're legit. They're not secretly good. They're legitimately good. Strategies of Football next week is Seattle, Arizona, by the way. I'm breaking that film down now. Seattle is good.
Their defense looked great. Their offense, I mean, Geno Smith.
They have an offense that can win because it's not through Geno, it's through the running game.
You tell me this offensive line wasn't that good last year.
No.
So what happened?
Well, they had a cross. I mean, that's certainly a component of it. We are going to be interviewing a member of the Seattle Seahawks nest to get the full breakdown here. So I don't want to take the thunder from all that. But at the end of the day, they're doing, from what I can tell from last year to this year, they are no longer doing what Rodgers is doing in hurting the Packers. They're not pulling the ball out of running plays. They're handing them off and letting the line get in rhythm. They're doing exactly what Tennessee does. We let you wail on you. We let you wail on you. Holy shit, it's the fourth quarter, and someone bet on the under because the first time they played, they didn't score at all. And now it's the fourth quarter, and no one from Arizona can tackle Walker. And that's exactly what happened, and they hit the over with like 13 seconds left. Thank you, by the way.
I see it. I see it in the stat sheets, and I see it, when we watch
They're
highlights.
they're just wailing people. Like there's 3 teams in the NFL that are all in playoff contention that are using this mindset of we're just going to keep hitting you and hitting you and hitting you, and we're not going to do it with zone. We're going to do it with power coming at you, and that is Atlanta, Tennessee, and Seattle. All of them are division leaders right now, and they're just teeing off and running at you. I would say Baltimore, except for the fact that they don't have a power running back. They have a skinny guy who's going to get broken.
Here's the problem with those teams. Not really the problem, but what I see going forward with these teams is that
one of them can pass and 2 of them can't.
Seattle can pass.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely 100%. Tennessee cannot. Atlanta cannot. And so you are strictly relying on Derrick Henry, Cordell Patterson, Tyler Algier, and Caleb Huntley. And Atlanta with Cordell Patterson looks way better.
It's a very different team. It's such a better team.
Cordell Patterson. And it gives – I'm hopeful for Kyle Pitts and Drew London here, or Drake London. I'm hopeful for those players because with Cordell Patterson back and Tyler Algier potentially being able to be put in there too at 9, he got 99 yards in the game. I'm hopeful that maybe Marcus Mariota could do something, but
I don't want to blow your hope bubble here, Bob, but the truth is that they know Mariota can't throw the ball at elite level, and they themselves are holding him back. Like they know. Well, they're treating him like how Dallas treated Cooper Rush in the last game against Philly. We're going to do better if we don't let him mess up.
Exactly.
And that is not how you win. I am 100% certain that Mariota is not the starting quarterback there next year. At the beginning of the year, I would have had I would have money that it would have been Strom from college, but Mariota will not be the starting quarterback there next year. I don't know if it's going to be another run around the free agent.
I thought it was Ritter. I thought Ritter was there.
They drafted Ritter, but if you can get a first pick overall talent, which I thought Atlanta was going to have, you would have taken it. But it's not going to be Mariota is the bottom line. They don't fundamentally trust him. No, this is already an offensive coordinator who believes in running the ball crazy.
If you look at Mariota's history, no team ever trusts Marcus Mariota and his decision-making skills. I mean, he was on Tennessee.
It's not even his decision-making. His arm isn't NFL quality.
Well,
he throws the ball to the right spot, it just doesn't get the job done.
But this is what happens: is when you have a quarterback, and you can see it in a couple quarterbacks in the league, is that you're making good decisions, but you're not talented enough, so the ball's not getting put in the right place. That's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're making bad decisions, but you're talented enough, and you're overthrowing the ball. And so that when I say decision making, it's a two-way thing here. Is that he can make good decisions, but he's not talented enough to get the ball there, and so.
This is the trickle effect that's happening.
His decision making is a problem because he is making good decisions, but he can't throw the ball.
This is the trickle effect that's happening. When they're called for design deep passes, they're not hitting them hot. Them being the receivers, specifically Pitts. He knows once he crosses the Mariota can get the ball to me line. And as soon as he crosses that, he slows it down. Because he's not getting the ball anyway. Why should I keep sprinting? And as soon as that line gets triggered inside of yourself mentally, you're not capable of winning. And yeah, I understand they're winning their division. They're leading their division because Tom Brady is broken and New Orleans doesn't have a real head coach. And whatever happened in Carolina, we don't need to discuss. So they're kind of like default winning their division.
That's what happened.
Yeah. So they're default winning it because the best unit in that division is their running game of the core of the offenses.
I want to say something on Carolina real quick, and
take it.
I don't understand, and I will never understand when you take a quarterback out and we say we traded for him. We say we ain't playing him anymore. We start PJ Walker, who, for all intents and purposes, other than that game against Cincinnati where they were getting drubbed, hasn't played terribly. And you say, I'm going back to Baker Mayfield. And
well, PJ Walker had an incredibly horrible first half.
Yeah. Well, that game was a total loss. Cool. Fine. Why the hell are you bringing back in Baker Mayfield when you told everyone, you're moving on? This is the problem with this. They did this last.
So, Bob, I gotta be honest with you. That one was not my primary watch of the 1 o'clock window. It was on the third TV. So when I looked over, I was like, "Oh, Baker's in." I don't know if Walker got hurt or not. It could have been a straight pull. I don't know.
Look it up. I think it was a straight pull.
But it also could be we're losing so bad, we're going to put out a sacrificial lamb. That's an argument you could make.
I mean, look at
PJ Walker also has been on 10 teams already. So let's not pretend like he's the savior.
I'm not saying he's the savior. I'm saying you're playing for a number 1 pick. You're playing for a first-round quarterback.
And Baker's great at getting those.
The issue that I'm having with Carolina as a whole is that now for 2 years, you have started a quarterback first 3-4 games this season. Third, fourth game of the season, either the quarterback gets hurt or starts sucking. So you put in your second quarterback for the next 3 games of the season. He gets hurt, starts sucking. So you go back to the first quarterback. He gets hurt, starts sucking. So you sign somebody else. He gets hurt, starts sucking. So you put in the backup again that you already played earlier in the year. Get it together, Carolina, because that is so stupid.
I don't think that can be said any better.
I mean, come on.
All right.
Like, that fan base deserves just a modicum of not self-hatred for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row. Maybe like we saw DJ Moore. And we're like, oh yeah, DJ Moore looks great with PJ Walker. DJ Moore had like 1 catch for 3 yards the other day. Like,
that's who they shut up. They took him out of the game, and they took the running game out of Carolina's game, and they panicked. They were like literally like some people when they have I'm reading a book about this. Some people when they have PS or post-traumatic stress, they immediately flip out of everything.
Well,
and then there's another group of people that just shut down.
Yeah.
And that's what Carolina's at right now.
Dude,
they're just shutting down.
When you study psychology and you get to know like what's going on in like that psychological mindset, a lot of that can be applied to sports. And you know, you're seeing when
it's like they're reliving the same trauma. Like it's crazy.
Over and over again. And I don't want to take away from anybody's trauma that they've experienced in their life by putting it to football, but I'm just saying strictly from a football standpoint, this fan base has seen Carolina be good, and they have seen them with good players, and they deserve not what they're getting right now. And the players on Carolina don't deserve that either. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, PJ Walker, you know, when Cam Newton was on the roster, right? Like, they don't deserve this 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week on.
Well, they kind of control that, so they might.
It feels like they're playing Madden. It feels like they're playing like at like the franchise mode in Madden, where it's like where you got to earn your spot on, like, you know how in the practice mode and like NCAA and Madden, where like if you're playing the not in franchise mode, if you're playing like the creative player mode, and you gotta like play your way onto the field in NCAA when you're like a redshirt freshman. This is what that feels like to me. And I'm not against something like that. I think it
competition can help.
I think it promotes that. But what I feel like it's damaging, it's not allowing
destroys continuity.
Yeah, it's not allowing any one player on Carolina's roster to actually get going and do anything. And we've talked about that with Jameis Winston versus Taysom Hill versus Andy Dalton.
I think a fundamental fact sticking in Carolina was very telling when Moore was hating on Baker earlier in the year, saying, I've been open my entire career and he thinks I'm covered now. So there's a fundamental disconnect between what the best playmaker is and the quarterback. And if you have those seeds starting your season that way, it's basically trying to grow something with rot. It's not going to work out. And like I said, this is a team I'm worried about ruining my chaos of Houston getting the first and second pick. And I want to talk about a team that helped my chaos theory, a team that got a little bit of that happiness that they deserved because they're working hard. They're biting kneecaps and they're picking Aaron Rodgers off in the red zone. Not once, not twice, 3 times. And that game was my favorite game of the week because A, I love defense, and B, I love watching Aaron Rodgers sulk. And that was awesome. 3 interceptions in the red zone. So, one was a defensive lineman catching it, reminiscent of James Harrison without the run back. I loved every second of it, except for the heart pounding. Are these guys actually going to win last drive? But they pulled it off, which was very unlike Detroit.
This is the most excitement I think you've had about anything that ever had.
This is the most excitement I have with the Lions in my entire life. Now, it's mostly Rodgers hate though, but that's okay.
Here's the worst part about this is that we knew it was coming. Everybody knew it was coming.
Vegas didn't know it was coming because I cleaned up.
I said about Aaron Rodgers weeks ago is that I'm probably going to start him against Detroit. I traded him. And if I would have started him against Detroit, I still wouldn't have won my matchup this week.
You would have negative points.
He's done that once before this season as well. But the issue with this Packers team we talk about all the time, there is zero consistency. Mm-hmm. There are injuries up the wazoo.
He doesn't trust anyone. And he thinks he's the smartest person in the world.
He is having so many issues. The team is playing one half and then not coming out in one half. The Detroit Lions aren't a good defense.
No.
They're not a good defense. And the fact that they picked Aaron Rodgers off 3 times.
Well, there's actually some film behind why. Green Bay dramatically simplified their defense, thinking that they could play essentially a Pee-wee style offense in terms of the basicness of what they were doing.
Simplified? Did you say that the Packers simplified their defense?
Yeah, they did. They clearly did to try to get everyone on the same page because they're tired of Rodgers throwing the ball to receivers who didn't know what they were doing. So they simplified it and basically brought it down to some of the most basic routes combinations you're taught in the beginning.
You mean Detroit?
No, I mean Green Bay's pass offense did that.
No, you said their defense did that.
No, the Green Bay pass offense did that, and then the Green Bay the Detroit Lions defense was not confused ever. There was no moment of them being confused.
Well, when you ask Detroit to play an elementary defense, of course they're going to be good at it because they have.
Well, no, Detroit was playing. Detroit was just covering basics.
That's what I'm saying. When you ask them,
you can't run a high school offense against NFL teams, no matter how bad the NFL team is.
But this is what I'm saying is that when you ask a terrible defense to play a high school defensive scheme.
No. They were playing against a high school. Detroit was playing a legitimate NFL style offense with all of its intricacies. Detroit didn't dumb their thing down. Green Bay's offense dumbed it down.
I get it. But what I'm saying is when the defense is so bad and they are up against an offense that is equally as bad, this game told me nothing other than the Packers offense is terrible. Because if you can't score against the worst by a big mile defense and you lose, 15-8 or something like that, 59, you suck.
Yeah, it was 9. They lost by 6.
You absolutely 100% are a garbage team. And it makes me wonder that when all the pieces are healthy and he builds trust, will they score points? Maybe like they did against Washington's defense. But this game, the only thing that this tells me is that this moment in time, the Detroit defense is the worst defense in the league, period, bar none, and that the Packers offense is the worst offense in the league. And that is even taking into account Tennessee's offense on Monday night.
Houston has bad on both sides of the ball. That's bold. Houston be bad on both sides of the ball.
This is what I'm saying, though, is that Dameon Pierce is one piece of that team.
That's true. Dameon Pierce is by far the brightest spot of that team.
They're giving him the ball. Mm-hmm. If Malik Willis sucks, they're still giving Derrick Henry the ball. If Aaron Rodgers is doing terrible, they're not giving Aaron Jones the ball.
Well, I actually even said that in the strategies of football. The last coach who stopped giving Aaron Rodgers the ball lost his job. We're essentially what we're seeing, and this is going to correlate to our leadership discussion we have with the Giants, is who's leading the Green Bay Packers right now. They don't have an owner. Remember, they're the only team that doesn't. Is it still Aaron Rodgers gets to control everything?
It's probably Derek in seat 112, section F.
Well, I mean, him like everyone else owns 1/100th of the team.
Than whatever's happening right now, because that team is terrible.
At some point, and this might be by Rodgers' choice or not, Aaron Rodgers is not going to be the starting quarterback of the Packers one day. Is that day in 2027? Yeah. Is that day in 2024? Or do you just say, hey, anyone who's willing to give us 2 firsts can have them? Because if I were in Green Bay, I would really start considering that.
This is the issue, is that, like we said, when we go from GOAT status and we have a bad year with a bad team, is that what is your future? What's going to happen? He clearly doesn't look like he wants to be a Packer.
Yeah. He looks like he wants a check.
He wants a check. He's playing for check. A lot of players play for checks, but
it's not a good way to build a culture. So you'll hear that conversation tomorrow at 6:30.
The issue that we have with Aaron Rodgers is that with the way he's been playing this year, would he be better on a team like the Panthers? Maybe. They're so dysfunctional anyway. Maybe. Would he be better on Houston? Maybe. But he went. But the amount of things that we're looking at is trust and talent. And for Aaron Rodgers, to me, out of all of the quarterbacks in the league today, he is the only like, I know all quarterbacks want trust in their wide receivers, but he's the only quarterback that I have seen in the past trust only 1 or 2 people at a time. I'm
not even sure he has that many.
Well, Devontae Adams.
Oh, you mean all time? Yeah.
All time. Jordy Nelson, he trusted him.
Sure.
And was he around during Donald Driver's late days?
Possibly, but right? But that was when Adams and Nelson.
You look at the back end and even the second wide receiver on all those Packers teams, and Packers fans will tell you this. You got guys like Jared Abbrederis.
Lazard was one for a while.
What?
Lazard was one for a while.
You have Lazard still there. He's the best player that they have. Catching the ball. You had Valdez-Scantling. You had Cobb. All of these players is that
never really had a tight end.
Once or twice or 3 times a game, Aaron Rodgers would be like, okay, I'll throw it to Marcus Valdez-Scantling. Maybe he'll turn it over. But these are the reasons why you wanted to own Jordy Nelson in fantasy. These are the reasons why
you wanted to own his possession receiver.
To own Devontae Adams, because he only threw it to those guys. And we're seeing that more and more now. And this is where Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and guys like that differ from one another, is that we are now seeing Mahomes yes, he loves Kelsey 100%, but he has
a more normal ratio of spreading it out.
Yeah, he has a more normal ratio. You're seeing guys like Jared Allen. He has a good ratio of spreading the ball around. You have Justin Herbie. You go and, okay, his wide receivers still suck right now, but he's spreading the ball around.
Yeah, you got to do injury adjusted for this. But yeah, I mean, Bob, you're 100% right with your point. it's he doesn't. He first off, he looks like he doesn't want to make a new friend. He literally looks like he's okay if the amount of friends he has right now this second is the same amount that he dies with.
He's 100% like Regina George from the Mean Girls. 100%.
Yeah. Like, how long are people going to deal with that? Like, this is what Brady's dealing with in Tampa. You left to go on essentially a second honeymoon to save a marriage that you didn't do anyway, and now you're yelling at me because you left our spring training or training camp. Like, no, you don't keep fighting for that guy. Eventually, you just miss your block, and he gets lit up.
Brady's lost the locker room there.
And I think Rodgers has as well.
Aaron Rodgers never had this locker room.
How could you say that he got coaches kicked out?
Right.
He owns this organization.
I'm saying he
expects everyone to placate to him like a little demigod.
Back it up. He doesn't own the players' respect.
I think that part's becoming apparent. It might have used to not be that way, but I think it's that way now.
He might own the organization and, be like, oh, threatening to leave. And people are like, oh, I don't want to start Jordan Love. But, hey, it's about that time because, believe it or not, way back in the olden days, Brett Favre started doing very, very, very similarly stupid things. And not to the degree that Aaron Rodgers. Brett Favre goes, hey, blah, 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 blah. They trade him to Minnesota. And everybody's like, oh, geez, like, that was a big deal.
Yeah, in division, too. In division is what that tells me they knew he was done.
And, he did play pretty decent.
You think Rodgers ends up in Detroit? Like that would be them repeating it.
I don't think, and like, I'm not saying that Jordan Love is going to be anywhere near how good Aaron Rodgers has been throughout his career. But I will say
you don't get 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row. Just ask the Colts.
I will say it's time to move on because it's very clear that you are not moving the ball. He doesn't trust you. You're wasting a defense that could be good.
Well, that's not quite true. It should be good on paper, but it is not manifesting itself.
But that's from the tumor that's growing out of the offense here. It's that Aaron Rodgers has an effect on all of the locker room. And if I know that he isn't caring, why should I care?
It's the exact conversation we have that will be coming out at 6:30 tomorrow. It's about leadership and specifically focusing on the Giants, but it's applicable in everywhere in football. And
it's so disappointing.
So disappointing. He's such a gray cloud that's just shadowing over the league. But there is one great glimmer of hope, and it's going to come out this week. Cleveland's going to lose again, Bob, and they're going to get right back on that trajectory. Right back on that trajectory to chaos.
Who's they going to lose to?
Let me pull up their whole schedule here, just so I don't miss one of these shining great moments. Because it's going to get fun. Oh, sorry. I type in Cleveland Browns. It comes up before their schedule, list the failed quarterbacks. So I want to go to their schedule. This week, as much as I cannot stand them, they are going to Miami. And as much as I'm about to start a rant about how much I hate Cleveland.
Blow their back out, dude. It's not even going to be close.
But we're going to find out from Miami if Waddle can carry them. Because Denzel Ward is by far the best player in Cleveland, and he should be able to take Tyreek Hill.
Well, here's the thing about Miami is that Miami just kind of been like, oh, Raheem Mostert, we don't really care about you now because now we have Jeff Wilson. And,
yes, they did. Mostert. I was so high on Mostert. Oh, man, am I done. But
I told you that was going to happen.
Let me go through this here for you because I don't want to mess this up. Cleveland is probably going to go 500 the rest of the way. They're going to get destroyed by Miami. Then they're going up to Buffalo. And I really hope in that moment their team quits. Because if their team does not quit and they keep fighting, they have some wins. Because they are the weekend of Thanksgiving when it's cold and shitty. They will be hosting the Buccaneers. And Brady hopefully will not be the starting quarterback that game. Because if he is, Cleveland will win. But if not, they won't. So following the Brady game at home, They then go to the softest dome in the NFL. They go to Houston. That's probably a Cleveland win. Although Chaos Theory would want to tie in that, which is 100% what I will be rooting for.
Okay.
Yes, if Houston has two ties, they are 100% the first pick in the draft.
Ready? Here's a fun thing. If you own Nick Chubb, I hope you get a nice Thanksgiving meal, because you are going to be so full of so much joy when Nick Chubb runs for 500 yards against the Houston defense. It's not.
Well, that's the week after. Buccaneers are Thanksgiving. That's the weekend
after.
You
can still be full afterwards, because that game might be. He might go off like Joe Mixon did this week.
And then December 11th, 5 games left. They go to Cincinnati, and Ohio always splits. It doesn't matter how bad or good those teams are. They always split. You look at their records over a decade, it's always 5-5, 5-5, 5-5. They're not beating the Bengals twice in the same season. Then Lamar Jackson will blow them out. Christmas Eve, you have the Saints. That's going to be him coaching for his job. Both of them probably. So I got to unfortunately give that to Cleveland, because they know what it's like to live in sad, abysmal Cleveland with bad weather. New Year's Day, in what will be probably the lowest rated TV game of the year, Cleveland will go to Washington. And yeah, who wants to watch that? That's New Year's Day. That's just, they're hiding that at the bottom of the 1:00 schedule. And then
I might not even be up at 1:00. We'll see.
Yeah, well, New Year's is happy. And then the final game of the year, they come to Pittsburgh, which they just don't win here. Period. It doesn't matter how bad we are. They don't win here. So they got at most 3 wins. That could get them to 6. That's going to really hurt the second pick overall. I need them to really kind of implode. But I also do. Oh, that's the other part of that Houston game, which I totally blanked on when I said it. That's Watson's first game back. I'm not sure they win that.
Well,
in Houston, like the NFL did that on purpose.
It doesn't matter if you're sure about that, but I will tell you this.
I'm rooting for chaos. We're holding this out all year until it's mathematically eliminated, Bob.
For those people that watch who vote in the United States, you are definitely aware that write-in candidates are a thing. And as I'm exploring Pittsburgh's subreddit, I came across a great nugget at one precinct, at one district. Nick Chubb was voted in as a write-in, and
like he actually got the position.
No. Nick Chubb was written as a write-in, and the only vote for Nick Chubb actually, but it takes some balls.
Like for what position?
I don't know. I think it was for Senate or something like that. But I will say this, which I thought was really funny, is that if you go to that Reddit link, it's like some Yinzer who came into the voting booth was like, man, Steelers have to play Nick Chubb the last game of the season. Maybe I can get him into office before he has to start against us again and just completely obliterate anything, any semblance that we have at ending the season on a good note. Like, that is the total Pittsburgh thing to do.
That is.
Put the best player from the team that is a rival team and just say, hey, you should be a senator. Go home.
Yeah.
You don't need to play anymore. Dearness Johnson is okay. Like, come on.
Oh, man. You're 100% right on that. Yinzer Nation. All right, so to recap everything in conclusion, Josh Allen's better than Patrick Mahomes. Seattle's really good. The Jets don't suck. And Miami's going to blow their own season the second Tyreek Hill gets hurt. I know I didn't explicitly say that this episode, but that will always happen. Tyreek Hill is going to implode. Miami's done.
Also, Packers are cooked. They need to trade Aaron Rodgers. Panthers, what are you doing? Justin Fields might be okay.
I think he's going to be better than Lance.
And CMC, bye week this past week, right? Nuclear the rest of the season. We'll see.
He's going to be great.
We'll see what the NFC West is going to do.
I want to see that Seattle-San Francisco game.
We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.